Sir Isaac Newton by Amani Sanders. The exact date that Isaac Newton was born and the date that he died is different depending on the source that you get it from, but he is said to be born in 1642 or 1643 and to have died in 1727. Newton was a philosopher, astronomer, mathematician, physicist, and scientist. Today I'll be focusing on Sir Isaac Newton as a physicist. It is said that Isaac Newton saw an apple fall from a tree and wanted to know why. Therefore, he created the law of universal gravitation. Isaac Newton's law of universal gravitation had to do with gravity on Earth, such as an apple falling from a tree, and gravity in outer space, such as planets orbiting around the sun and the moon orbiting around the Earth. And so while doing the research, Sir Isaac Newton discovered that the same gravity that pulls the planets in an orbit is the same gravity that pulls an apple down to the Earth. So in this video, this stunt group is doing a toe touch basket toss, and as you can see, the flyer is being thrown up in the air, and at her highest point she hits a toe touch, and then gravity brings her back down to her stunt group. So the same gravity that pulled the flyer down to her stunt group is the same gravity that makes the planets orbit. Sir Isaac Newton also came up with a formula to find the gravitational force, and that formula is gravitational force is equal to the constant of universal gravitation multiplied by mass 1 times mass 2 divided by the distance between the masses squared. So when Isaac Newton was around, the constant of universal gravitation, which is represented by a capital G, was not known. Henry Cavendish came up with the G, but Isaac Newton did make the formula. He just didn't know what the G was, what number it was. In 1687, Sir Isaac Newton published the Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy. Inside of this were his 3 laws of motion, which he derived from Kepler's law of planetary motion and his own mathematical ideas of gravity. Newton also created the 3 laws of motion. Newton's first law is of inertia, and it states that an object at rest will remain at rest, and an object in motion will remain in motion unless acted upon by an outside force. A good example of this law would be the toe touch basket from earlier. The flyer was at rest before the basis threw her up in the air. The basis throwing her up in the air took her from being at rest into being in motion. Another example of Newton's first law is a regular toe touch on the ground. When you jump up, you are in motion. You would stay in motion if it wasn't for the outside force of gravity bringing your legs down. Newton's second law is about force. Force is equal to mass times acceleration. The mass is in kilograms and the acceleration is in meters per second squared. The unit for force is in newtons because Isaac Newton helped with the understanding of force and motion. In this video, you will see a tumbling pass of a running round off back handspring full, and if we knew what her mass and her acceleration was, we could find her force, according to Newton's second law. Newton's third law states that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. In this video, you can see a good example of Newton's third law, that for every action, there is a reaction. At the end of this video, the flyer will be in a full extension in the air, and the bases will be pushing her up with an upward force, and her body naturally from gravity will be pushing a downward force, and therefore making it an opposite reaction.
F-22 Raptors.